Tom, I guess we can start by talking about this story today because, well, I'm trying to understand and get different takes. Why is Pierre Poilievre in Quebec for the week? And I asked Jimmy earlier on, do you think this might have anything to do with the fact that he believes there's a federal election in the works?
I believe that as well. I've been saying that to you guys since before Christmas, that Trudeau was trying to clean off the runway as much as he could to get ready for takeoff. If he thinks there's an opening, he's going for it. Quebec is one of Pierre Poilievre's weaker suits, no question about that. He just doesn't make it through. There's a funny Quebecois expression, il est cassant. It's like the equivalent of he's in your face, and he doesn't get to do that here because people don't know anything about him, and he's going to have to learn how to calm down. He did a very good turn over the Christmas holidays. You know, on New Year's Eve, everybody in Quebec watches the Bye-Bye show on Radio Can. Well, there's a show just before that of Info Man, and I think Rick Mercer, but a lot more caustic. And Poilievre very gamely appeared on that show. He did super well. He was great. Very personable, very friendly, very quick on his feet. And so he knows how to play the game. But for some reason, he's just decided that he hates all journalists and all mainstream media, and he wants to go and meet bizarre think tanks that don't do a lot of thinking, like the one that he visited in Winnipeg last week that had very strange notions that the residential school tragedy wasn't really all that bad. So he's going to have to pick and choose. He can't say that he's in favor of freedom and then go and see these, really weird groups who espouse strange views and expect the average Quebecer or the average Canadian to follow him. So for him to spend a few days here is great. It's smart politics. It's not the busy season in Ottawa yet, and he's going to get to cover a lot of terrain and get a lot of face time.
So to what you said, there are communications teams built around a leader. You're supposed to listen to their advice. I have the distinct impression that Pierre Poilievre may, it's kind of in one ear, out the other, and doesn't pay attention to that, given the fact that, there's some pretty obvious things you just said of who you should be talking to. Do you think that's the case?
Yep. It's exactly as you say, Aaron. And I do know some of the people around him because I've gotten a chance to work with them over the years, and I know them quite well. Really able people. Think, John Baird and people of that caliber. And they're going to be doing everything they can to try to talk to him. He's convinced himself that the reason that Andrew Scheer never made it, the reason that Erin O'Toole never made it, is that they were trying too hard not to be the ultra-conservatives. They talked a good game, but then they would let the mainstream media walk all over them, and that's why they lost. I don't think that that's a smart analysis. And I'm not saying that Poilievre's not a smart guy. He certainly is, but he's convinced himself of that, which means, as Chantal Hébert pointed out in a great piece over the weekend, that without the slightest evidence, the minute he holds something to be true, nothing else needs to be said. And he's going to have to learn to grow out of that. He's going to have to get past that if he does want to have a chance of convincing the average person in this country that they deserve a chance to form a government.
So he's here all week, evidently. Today, the first day, and he did hold a press conference and take questions, which he doesn't always agree to do.
No, he doesn't always agree to do. That's for sure.
How did it go, in your opinion? We weren't able to see it, Tom.
I was not able to see it either.
Okay.
And I'm waiting to read the transcripts, which I'm going to do before I'm able to get back on the air the next time. But I have to say that the very fact that he was giving the date and the time and calling it a media availability, it's not a full-blown press conference. It's, answering a few questions like you say. It's worthwhile. I also hear that he's doing a fundraiser, I believe at the Mount Royal Club, some well-heeled people giving lots of money to the Conservative Party. So he's got some support here, and it shows that, they're still alive and kicking, and he does have every hope of being able to beat Trudeau. I'm getting information out of Ottawa that Trudeau's gang, they're quite sure, they've got their focus groups, they've got their polling numbers, they're quite sure that they can beat Poilievre. And one of the things that they're counting on is being able to steal a lot of votes from the NDP, using that age-old argument from the Liberals, don't split the vote. And this time, they've got a real bogeyman. They held out Andrew Scheer as being anti-woman's choice. They held out O'Toole as being pro-gun and anti-vax and whatever. They're good at going against their adversary, but this time around, they don't have to work that hard to convince the average person in Toronto, that he's got some weird views. And you see, that's one of the mistakes that the other two made that I thought that Pierre Poilievre would be able to avoid. Because whenever you pick a fight with a large cultural community, think the Muslim community, and the snitch line and the barbaric practices and stuff that the Conservatives were putting in place before. Or if you have a position that he, in my view, he just clearly communicated to the nearly 1 million First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Canadians that he's not really on their side. Well, you can't win an election if you're throwing 1 million votes at a time into the wastebasket. So again, he's going to have to learn how to play the game at a different level. And if he keeps saying, no, I'm going to play divisive politics, it's not going to work.
Okay, let me shift from that into what's going on in Ontario. We didn't talk about this at all last week. I've seen Doug Ford holding a couple of press conferences, and then today finding out, and something that we've talked about here in Quebec and the government has decided to weigh in on as well, but I don't know where we stand with this idea of allowing citizens, because the healthcare system is so backed up, to take care of surgeries privately. So things like cataract surgery, which is fairly, I guess, not only easy, but is... At this point, I guess, there are millions of people waiting to have this kind of stuff done. It doesn't necessarily need to go through the hospital system, knee replacements, hip replacements, that kind of a thing. What is the story about it, and is this something we can follow here in Quebec or not?
It's something we are going to be following in Quebec because Legault is exactly on the same page as Ford on this stuff. This is an argument that's been around. Philippe Couillard was a big proponent of this, saying, look, I'll farm out some of this work, knee replacements, hip replacements, cataract surgery, that sort of thing. I'll farm it out to private clinics. We'll have a set price. It'll be actually cheaper than what it is in the hospital setting, and we'll get things done faster. And there is an argument to be made for that. It's a big debate that has to be had because it flies in the face of some aspects of the Canada Health Act and the existing agreement between the feds and the provinces. But, I've been in government for a whole long time, and it's always said almost tongue-in-cheek, but there's this basic rule of public administration that when what you're doing doesn't work, try something else. And I think that there is agreement in Canada that the health system is broken. It's not working. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to be a little bit more creative and maybe a little bit less dogmatic and say, okay, if this can be done without creating a two-tier system, because what worries me about these private clinics, Natasha and Aaron, is the fact that you'd have a lot of people getting in there. If they're at the top of the ladder, they're going to be the type of person that they want as a client. If you have somebody, who's really down on their luck, a homeless person, let's say, or somebody who's in really bad shape otherwise, if they're only going to wind up in the public hospitals. And you will have the makings of a real two-tier system, which is, I think, again, something that most Canadians do not want.
But and then there's the consideration, I heard this raised today, and it needs to be asked as well. Let's say we go that way, as you're suggesting we are heading. What about then losing people working in the public sector now to go work in the private sector because it's going to be so much busier?
Oh, no, quite busier and probably much better working conditions because, you're not going to be told at 4 o'clock on a Friday that, no, you're not going home to have supper with your family. You're having compulsory forced overtime. And so the working, no question that they'll be able to draw in workers in an already very difficult situation for the public sector. So those are all really good reasons to be super careful. But I don't think that any of them prohibit having the conversation. Because at some point, we've just got to look at the system that we've got now. You can't have it both ways. No. You can't keep saying that the system is broken, but that just throwing more money at it is going to fix it. It's not. Because there are fundamentals in there that we just refuse to look at based on ideology. And I'm a big fan, a big proponent, and a big fan of the public system. But at the same time, I do believe that it's a debate that we're allowed to have.
I think the best thing that could come out of this, if we do indeed, and we are already losing employees to the private sector, is that it forces the public sector to do for real reform and to do a better job and to treat their employees better.
Exactly. That's another good thing. Because I don't know if you saw what happened at Maisonneuve-Rosemont over the weekend, but you had almost 100 nurses who signed a simple petition saying, we quit.
Yeah.
I mean, if this continues, we quit. And they're not going off somewhere else to a job that they've already organized. They're just going to quit those jobs, and they will, of course, find something somewhere else. So the government's got to start figuring this stuff out because this compulsory, overtime that can just be thrown at you and that, oh, no, sorry, you can't go get your kids at daycare today. Tough luck. That's got to change.
I don't get it, Tom. I don't understand how as a society, these people who serve the most important purposes in our lives, who teach our children, who take care of our elderly, who help our sick, are ill and are unwell, are treated the worst. They get the worst conditions, the worst, situations. I'm baffled by it.
Well, you're right to be baffled by it. And when you see that the Order of Nurses holds an exam and there's an outrageously high failure rate, and they've been plugging along for years saying, these people should all be trained at the university level. And all of a sudden, the CJAD trained nurses who have been there for 40 years, 45 years getting trained at CJAD, there's never been this sort of problem. Oh, now all of a sudden, no, they really, can't cut mustard. No, we're really going to have to, and it's just a way of pushing for more university training. The government should move in there real fast. There's a wonderful guy named André Guerrier, who is the commissioner of examinations at the Office des Professions, and he's got the mandate to look at this thing, and I'm really hoping to hear from him soon that he's going to have a report, because I'm quite sure that he's going to come down hard on this thing.
Tom Mulcair, back tomorrow morning with Andrew Carter at about 7:40. Tom, thank you.
Take care.